Welcome to Behind the Biz, conversations with artists and entertainment. I'm your host, Megan Mason. Please subscribe here on YouTube and don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Now, on to the show. Hi, Cynthia.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good.
Welcome to the show. I want to introduce everyone. This is Cynthia Nordstrom. She is a costume designer for, oh my gosh, Disney, Marvel Universe. There's some HBO thrown in there. Lots of tours, Universal Studios. I mean, the list goes on, and you can check it out. I found one of your booking sites so people can check you out online and book you for some gigs. But I wanted to welcome you to Behind the Biz. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I was introduced to you from a colleague that we have in common, Ashley, and she just raved about your designs and working with you, but mainly you as a human being. So I was like, that perked up my interest. It's so nice to find people that are good at what they do and also good people, especially in our industry, I think.
Especially.
So I wanted to chat with you and see, because this is a really amazing career, and your first show that you designed fully, you were like 24, right?
Yes.
You're like a baby designer. I mean, I was not doing that at 24. So I wanted to chat with you and see, like, is that where you imagined yourself to be when you were like 12?
No.
Like, did you want to be a vet? Like, how did you get here?
No, me and science. No. I did the bare minimum to get through science in my college career and everything. But other than illustrate labs, science is not my gig. No, I actually was a theater kid. By 5, I had been bitten, and whenever anybody asked me that whole question of what do you want to be when you grow up, what's your dream, first thing, actress, and I had a red convertible. That was basically, they were together.
So specific.
Very specific. I don't own a red convertible yet. I mean, I don't know, maybe one day.
Yeah.
But no, I worked really hard, basically doing any type of show, play, musical throughout my childhood, and had a coach and amazing parents. And that was my true love, really.
And that's what you went to university for originally, wasn't it? To go for acting?
Actually,
did you ever do it?
Well, funny story. If I think of my 18-year-old self, all of my decisions were definitely made on the premise of, gosh, I could be in college and I need to be 2 hours tops from the city in case I get an audition. Like, that was what my coach said. And I mean, I was serious. I was always a great art student. Like, I did every art class on the side. Like, I definitely, I'm an artsy kid. So I loved art, had all that, but that was my hobby, really. That was my hobby.
Your sketches are beautiful.
And thank you. And so I only applied to schools within 2 hours of New York that made everybody else, I mean, seriously, and then had amazing theater departments, except for 1 or 2. Because then all of a sudden I was like, wow, maybe I shouldn't major in theater. Maybe I need a backup, because I was very concerned that I would be a terrible waitress or some other sort of people person that I would need to be to maybe survive the big city. And art became sort of that'll be my fallback. I literally told my dad that my backup career was going to be a fashion designer while I went to college and continued to audition to maybe be an actress. and he bought it. I mean,
I was going to say, how did that go?
he was amazing. They were amazing. My parents are amazing. And I was a great student, and they didn't question it. He even, this is still amazing. I need to channel this. He even looked in my eyes. It was literally a straight A student, complete nerd. And he was just like, if you don't want to go to college, I will finance you to be home and just try this acting thing.
What?
I know. And I was worried that if I didn't go right after high school, I probably maybe would never go. And I felt like college in some form, any form, was an important step for me.
Yeah.
So I, came up with this backup idea. And yet, had this kind of dual life going on. And that was my plan for college, really.
That's a good plan, though. I mean, it's interesting, even as an 18-year-old, to have the insight, to say, I think there's probably some experiences in here, one way or the other, that I'm going to need.
Yeah. And I always heard amazing things about college, and, I did the whole tour of them, and, I was definitely ready for the experience, but I did tailor all my decisions about college initially, really about, how I got to make sure it's, easy for acting. So it was kind of crazy.
It's so crazy. And it's just crazy because, and not in the sense that, I don't think that's crazy. I am a planner. So I think that is amazing that you were like, yes, I'm going to figure this out and have a logistical, plan for my life. I love that. Gold stars all the way around. But I think it's amazing that the other path that happened in becoming a fashion designer, and then that even took another turn. When we were chatting before, I thought that was really interesting, and that the listeners could learn a lot from that pivot, and really kind of listening to yourself and seeing what the opportunities are that are there. And so I wanted you to tell us a little bit about how you moved from fashion into costume design, because they are similar, and but they are very different. They have very different needs and functionality for an ice skater versus a runway model.
Very, yes. Well, it was funny. So I, literally junior year of college, I decided to enter into a haute couture competition that's held in Paris every year. It's sort of the Olympics of universities that have fashion design as a major. So every country, there's 37 participating countries, or there were at the time. We're allowed to send a team of 10 students from their country. So you can imagine the paring down and all that. And it was sort of an amazing process, because it was blind submittal. So you were looked at in your art and your concept. You weren't allowed to sign the front of your design. So they didn't know if you were male or female or anything else. They didn't know your name. They didn't know your background. They received the art, and the panel in New York, who chose all 10 of us, just looked at, they knew the theme of the competition that year, and just literally looked at hundreds of submissions, because your own university pared you down. They were only allowed to send two ideas, not people, but two ideas. And then from there, so imagine all the design schools that are accredited around our country.
Yeah.
And then, so they're each sending two to New York. And then from all of that is a group of 10. And then from that moment, they call you, and then you got to get to Paris, and it's all hand done. You have to do it all yourself. And so I did it. Everybody, wanted to enter. And first I got to rep the school. And so then I spent 7 weeks making this to specific measures, and, this crazy idea. And then
I have a quick question before you get to Paris, because that alone just that process in itself is a lot of pressure. So, did you find yourself as a junior in college doing this, that you handled the pressure very well, and has that stayed on in your life? Or that's a lot, or are you just like, if I get it, great, if I don't, it's okay? Like,
Well, it was funny. I was entering my senior year, right? Like, because it was the
yeah.
thing to do. And I was kind of secure in the other things I was doing. And at that point, I didn't live and breathe design like maybe I should have. I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I did well, but I had this other love, the theater love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of that was buffered. Some of that was, because I didn't hold myself to some of the other students and their obsession and beautiful passion for it. And so I let myself be like, okay, well, I'm going to submit my idea and go along my merry way if, the idea is not good enough. And what am I going to do? So
Yeah.
I was more relaxed at it, which I think, thankfully, I'm definitely thankful for. And it marked the only time when I found out that I was going to go to Paris and they were going to send me, and I took my mom.
Aw.
That marked the first time I had already gotten a lead in the winter production in theater. They had a theater program there too. And at that moment I was like, wow, I can't physically do both. Like I can't do both.
Of
So it
course,
was
it
the
happens at the same time.
first, well, no, I'd had roles before, but it was the first time I literally put down a script and was like, no, I'm going to be serious about this for a minute. Like this needs my attention over here, this
Yeah.
fashion thing. And definitely that experience alone showed me magic that I thought only existed on the stage for me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And
it
that was
does.
my first pivot because being under the Louvre on the same runway that Chanel has used and watching all of these gorgeous creations
Gives
and
me goosebumps.
work and like your stuff is dressed by professional French dressers, and I mean it was just exquisite. It was just amazing. I met all these people from other countries, but then when it all comes to the moment of the show, I'm in the audience and like it packed with people, and then watching everything and then knowing, oh my god, there's America, so like mine's in this mix, I'm next. And watching the model go out, take down her coat like we planned, everything, watching it and knowing that I created all that. I was actually in control of most of that, not all of it, not in the final presentation, and just being able to like absorb and watch others around me and see how they
Yeah.
reacted. And it was just that energy that I've always felt, but just in a totally new way.
Yeah.
And I went home from that experience. I tackled my collection and did other things in fashion. And I really, I really woke up, like I really woke up to the excitement of it. And so
That's so awesome.
I definitely graduated, as a budding fashion designer. And then, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So then, yeah, I entered back into the New York scene. The great thing with my university is you already had 2 working internships, and I always took them in New York because that was my city. So yeah, I just jumped in and at first tried to be just a pure designer. I didn't go out for shows anymore. I just kind of walked away, and it wasn't enough.
You miss it.
It wasn't enough for me. I was like, wow, wait a minute. I just came from Paris and now I'm pouring coffee for the second assistant, and we're worried about, the next pair of jeans. And frankly, there's so many great jeans in the world. If you can't find jeans you love, then you're just not looking in the right spot. And that's sort of how I approached that. I was like, what's really creative about that? I'm not so sure. And yeah, so that was becoming something I noticed. And I was worried or maybe over anxious or I don't know, a go-getter or not satisfied, or I don't know what other words I'm going to put to it. But I was definitely concerned that I would forever be pouring coffee or being just not in the mix of the energy. And in New York, as just a newly graduated fashion designer. So at the time, I heard tale of Disney down in Orlando doing this wild expansion. They were going to create a park called Animal Kingdom, and they were starting cruise lines. And apparently, like, they needed warm bodies. They needed people in like almost everything to like, they were just expanding, just very exciting. And so for the first time, I became a non-commuter, bought a car, and literally told my parents, I was like, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to design shows down there or something. So I drove down to Florida.
I'm going to make it work.
That's right. And that was a pivot to really deciding to combine the two ideas. Why I didn't do it locally, I'm not quite sure. But
I'm right at the time, the things that we don't even think of.
Right. So it was another sort of interesting turn. And here, the tri-state area girl found herself, living in Orlando by herself. And, sparkles in my eyes showed up at the doorstep of Disney, fresh from Paris. It's kind of what I had to offer. And got a nice reception, but also a dose of reality, which was no, their design department was only 2 to 3 designers and an illustrator at the time, all whom had been working with the company for 15 years plus, if not more. And they don't just hire designers like that. So
you're like, okay.
So that was interesting. So what do? You join the union for backstage so that I could dress shows, because again, I knew I was good with clothing at that point.
Yeah.
And I'd always been around theater. And I mean, just from my own experience, I can fast change like the best of them. I knew how to layer, I know all those tricks just inherently. So, so my career with Disney did not start off all splashy. It was simple, and I just kind of tossed myself in the mix, and was a local union in creative costuming.
I love that. And you'd work your way up and say yes when the opportunities present itself.
Yeah. So it was, it was a combination of things, right timing, knowing that a company needed personnel, whether they hired me right away for what I thought they needed me for is a different question. But I definitely somehow put myself in a way where I gained tons of experience and in such a little time. I mean, the first 6 months I dressed, gosh, they were getting ready for their 25th anniversary show. And, that was televised with Betty White and Jodie Benson and Roy Disney. I met him. And,
you did.
Mm-hmm. And, I did little dance shows, and I ran operations or helped run operations, costuming a portion of a park, and, the ins and outs of that, and the laundry and the prep and the setting, and the
logistical knowledge that you gain just from doing that is so phenomenal.
It was crazy. It was definitely like a speed course, and just, surviving what needs to happen on a live show event that actually doesn't just happen 8 days a week, 8 times a week. It happens every day, multiple times, perhaps, depending on what you're
Right.
working on. So,
Well,
yeah.
do you find that only because I do find this in the wig and makeup world that a lot of people think that when you design things that that's all you do is you do the sketches, then you send them off and then it's done. And it involves so many people and so much scheduling and hiring the right crew and all of these types of skills that you're, learning as you were going there. Do you find that it's the same kind of assumption with costume design that they, especially the younger artists that want to get into it, they don't realize that they need all of that kind too?
You want to be, well, I mean, in anything, first of all, you got to go where your heart is. So if you're here doing this, your heart's involved, because why would you otherwise?
True.
And without the heart part of it, I don't think you're ever going to be truly successful, because you can tell in any career.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I think that gets lost. The fact that you need to also then look at yourself as, how can I be invaluable to the other
Yeah.
people on the team? Is that, gosh, if I know how to maintain a wig, on in those emergencies where, the Cosmo team is overloaded and, you walk in to find a wig not set up right by an actor and it's just destroyed, and you need that second pair of hands, or you're setting something, you notice, two buttons just fling off, or, something just instantly is not going to clasp or work. And can you just sit down and fix it and not just delegate it,
Yeah.
because at times on smaller things, there's no one to delegate it to.
That's the truth.
So,
Especially in theater land.
especially. So, and I feel like, gosh, the amazing people who are successful, like I worked with amazing costumers who had been doing live events and tapings and filmings at Disney for just years and years and years. They had Emmys, they had huge things under their belt. And I must say, it was those that, I know on 2 instances, so I wasn't even on this woman's team, and she heard a story of how a zipper got jammed, and I pretty much fixed it on the spot, and then she wanted to meet me. We talked a little bit, and she, I guess, recognized I had some mad skills. And the next thing I knew, when she had a big thing, I'm right. I was requested, and I was just the local, but then it put me, just that moment of being valuable and invaluable, it put me on a new team in a higher experience or a different experience that I wouldn't have even been on if there wasn't a need. So sometimes that need you didn't know existed, if you can fill it, gosh, it always brings something. It always brings you something.
Right. Fill it and do it humbly and with with respect in regard to what's happening, that this is a part of that, collaboration. That's wonderful. I love that story. I also know you're not traveling now because, I don't know, there's a little pandemic happening. But you have had extensive travel, and one of the shows was in Dubai. That was really beautiful. That was that was a Disney tour one, was it not?
Yes.
With the different kingdoms.
Yes. No, that was actually, it was first a North American tour, and toured actually by Feld Entertainment, and was out on the road. Gosh, it was out on the road for quite some time. But when it was newer, it was very popular, and someone in that region of the world of Dubai decided they needed that tour over there. So we made another one exactly the same way, and
Awesome.
I toured over there.
When you travel, this is like a two-part question. One, where is maybe your favorite place that you've been able to travel for work? So you can kind of combine work and play a little bit. And then two, when you do travel, do you bring your whole team with you? Is it just you and then you do locally? Does it depend? Like, how does that work in the real world of mounting shows internationally?
Well, I mean, goodness, there are formulas, but I guess that question is first. I'll do the team's question first. It's every job, project, company is slightly different and have different opportunities or rules on the basis of that. I mean, obviously, if you do a musical here, generally, if it splits and goes overseas, one or most of your team will then work again on it because the nucleus
Yeah.
of it is coming from here in its entirety. So then you get to bring that amazing associate and, you know, your shoe person, and you just do it. You do it all again together over there. When you work for, or in my experience, when I've worked for companies that also have base, you know, they're either home based, not in America, or their theme park in, say, Japan. Basically, your team, I've built my team with the people from that country. Not only because it's obviously it's a little more economical for the producers, but also there's something to be said about, again, you know, it's that valuable thing. They know my resources there. The language, if there are multiple languages or language barrier, that's invaluable, so that I don't always have a translator. I mean, I've had shows with translators, and that's fine. But to be honest, when you get a translator, there's just a translator. They're not necessarily masters in your specialty. So if you're constructing garments and there's terminology there and specifics and colors, the words you use for colors, some of that nuance gets lost.
That's really interesting.
The world of translation. And, you know, I can tell you millions of stories about that. So when somebody on your team not only is skilled and has both languages, but then on top of which you end up just really enjoying working with them, it's, you know, obviously a home run. So I guess it's a bit of a combination. But also part of it is also personality, because if you have worked with someone or a team and they didn't all gel, or you didn't gel with them, or you didn't have that back and forth, then it is hard to want to bring them to the next thing or call them up. You know, because ultimately it's theater, you know, you build a family, and
these are people you spend many, many, many hours with, you know, so it's like, if you don't,
exactly. So you should enjoy the people you're around.
Sometimes you're around them more than your family.
Yeah. So
For
my
real.
favorite, so it's hard. I mean,
I know it's kind of an unfair question. So maybe like the top two or places. Yeah, just
well, my town. Okay, that's easy. So, gosh, I mean, they're very close. So I did get to. It was kind of full circle. I got to build part of a tour for Stage Entertainment Holiday on Ice in Paris on Saint Honoré. So the fashion girl in me totally freaked out. I saw Karl Lagerfeld at his cafe because it was diagonal across the street from the salon I was working in at the time. Seriously, I can't even. So for
You're
me, yeah, because also their working hours in Paris are not as intense as, say, America or Asia. So it was wonderful, literally in a beautiful manner. As Europeans, 6 o'clock was dinner. The day was done. So, you know, it was like, what beautiful fountain and cafe can I sit at, looking at my favorite fountain, you know, and just watch the night come, you know, into play, and just saunter back to my hotel room. So that's a bit of a song for me. The other close second is I have grown to love my time in Japan.
So many people love Japan. I haven't been.
It is, goodness, let's see. my anniversary with them. So I think I am 15 years. 15 years.
Wow. Because you did Universal in Japan. Was one of the is that the main, or did you do other shows there?
No, I am a regular designer for fortunate as regular designer for Universal Studios Japan. Yeah.
Man, that's so fun. Whenever you go, are you able to take time and plan either on the back end or the front end to like go on little tours or go out into the countryside and
Well, before children, there was always like a day or two that I loved when it fell on an off day with cast, which meant, Cynthia gets a day to play. Um, Now I'm stingier as a mom. I'm stingier with my time, so I don't, I don't do that. However, with this weird time in our lives, man, if I get to, I'm working for them right now, and when our parade opens, I'll be on that plane, and I will not rush back because I felt like, gosh, I'm never going to get there again. This year we've had. So if that all comes to be, I will relish a little bit more. But yeah, no,
right.
one of the best times I had was I had a weird off day, and I made one of my associates who luckily they didn't mind spending their off day with me. And they're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have to go see Kyoto and the geishas, and I want to have tea there. And I
Yeah.
want to see the cherry blossoms because it was spring, and it's like bigger than Christmas there.
Was it
The welcoming of
perfect?
cherry blossoms. Oh my goodness. So yes, so that's a cherished day that I had over there. But yeah, just the people, the food, just a different way of life. But I loved it.
Are there any places that you want to visit, either for work or
Oh yeah,
personal?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So, I mean, hello. No, I would love, I've never been to some other European countries. I just actually went to Ireland a couple years ago with we had a family wedding, so that's amazing. But Austria, Spain, I've never been, Switzerland. Um,
Yeah.
I would love to go to Australia. I would love to, like
Just everywhere. Just
just
jump.
everywhere, if
Oh
it can
my
happen.
gosh. And do you think that your kids, because I think about this often with my son, and what he's around a lot and going to the studio with me, and then
Mhm.
there's crazy wigs and makeup and stuff in here and like sequin. I had a sequin dress on today and he was like, wow. So I just wonder sometimes, like, is he gonna want to do anything like this or interested in this? Do you find that your kids being around, you make such beautiful sketches and art, are they interested in that type of stuff, or what do you think about that?
Well, I didn't for my son's oldest, and my fondest memories were when he was a baby and in the bouncy seats. I'd bring him up to my studio and put him on the floor, and he'd fall asleep so that I could draw. And like always, by the time the 2 or 3 hours had ended, I'd go to pick him up, and there's totally like little glitter had fallen on his head from like whatever,
Always.
and that always. And I was just like, oh my god. And my husband would be like, really, what's going on there? And I'm like,
It's in the air.
little pixie dust on him. So I know they're goodness, they notice more in shows, obviously.
Oh
When
yeah,
they're
interesting.
young, I protected the magic, so always. And that was always very important to me. So they knew right away that sometimes Mickey and Minnie, had a new show to do, and she needed more dresses. So,
That's a good way to frame that. So yeah,
or Hello
that's really
Kitty.
interesting because you're working with Disney and stuff. Like, I didn't even really think about
It's
that.
really important to me that as long as they're real, and
is a conversation. I'm in a couple of mom groups, and one of them in particular, they're performers. Most of them are singers and stuff, but they all work in entertainment, and so there's a lot of, and then my own friends, from Cirque and stuff, of balancing what it is that we love to do, that is our passion, with also having a tiny human. And you have two tiny humans. So do you find that you find that balance most of the time? How do you,
Well,
or do you just incorporate them, like,
you do as much as you can.
right?
The great thing that I always noticed with my schedule, there were definitely lulls in different parts of the year. So what I did do was I was cognizant of that early on, so that it wasn't like I would run out and get another big tour or show.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I just finished something big, I definitely made sure that, okay, for the next month or two, I'm just gonna be mom, you know. And then, to be honest, by the end of the second month, I knew I needed to like make something else. So like by then,
Yeah.
hopefully, knock on wood, something would come that needed me and I could start up again. So, it ebbs and flows. The more that I can include them, obviously, the better it is. It always is. But they know that, or I try to explain to them that I'm a better mom because I have all this art and it makes me happy too. So it's like a recharge for them. They just don't know that part. If that makes sense.
But one day I think that will, they'll remember those conversations, and be like, oh, I get it now. That whole, like, I'm taking French because it makes me happy. It
There you
just
go.
makes me happy. Will I go back to France? Yes, eventually. But that, like, 2 hours a week or whatever, it just, yeah, it is. It's like
It
a
gives you
recharge,
something. It gives you
especially
something.
now when there's
Right.
not a lot going on. Um, but yeah, I think that's a very interesting way to put that, and kind of keeping your own energies full so you have them to give.
Yeah. Like it definitely gives me more patience. Even though sometimes I've only had 2 hours of sleep, but I don't take it out on them. Like that, my husband would be like, "What?" He's like, "You're packing their lunch?" Like, and he knew like I went to bed at like maybe 4:45.
They're like, they still have
He's
to
like,
eat.
"You're up?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, why wouldn't I be?"
I'll
But
take a nap in a minute. It's fine.
yeah, like I can hang on and then, get them to school and then fall apart, after they're gone. But, like that's the price. If that's the price, then, I do it with a smile.
Yeah, I say that quite a bit. I'm like, this is what I signed up for. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
I have to figure out how to make those sacrifices, and where those are. But at the end of the day, I signed up for this, and he's mine. He's like, I
It's
have
all
you know,
yours.
you have to figure it out and make him happy. He's not happy all the time. Today was not happy about St. Patrick's Day pictures, but
Yeah.
they're cute. He'll live in posterity forever.
That's right.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about some fun things. One of the questions that I like to ask people is, when you were growing up, and I'm feeling very nostalgic this week for whatever reason, I'm not really sure, but when you were growing up, do you find that there's certain movies or television that really made an imprint on you, that either shape your aesthetic, or,
Hmm.
do you know what I mean? Like, I do you remember Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling?
Yes.
So I did not realize that Glow had an absolutely visceral impact on me until I saw the documentary last year, and was like, oh my God, all the chunky glitter in their hair. It made me so joyfully happy that I was like, wow, like, this was a thing that I watched as a kid, growing up, and like the Goonies and, those
Oh,
jackets and,
Goonies, seriously.
so it made me think, like, I wonder if there's other movies that really like spoke to people as we're growing up, the fun stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm totally in love with the 80s. How can you not? I mean, just how can you not?
They're so good.
Exactly. But I did, before that, because, I was way popular, I definitely owned any musical I could get my hands on.
You were the musical kid.
Anything Judy Garland. Well, because you remember, this was
Yeah.
about performance for me at first. So
Yeah.
those things I saw, and even clothing I saw, and costumes. I mean, Edith Head. Like I was, immersed in that world while looking at the performance of it, but the visuals are, and the color and the black and white and all of that. They were, I have the full set of Ginger Rogers Fred Astaire because I need that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, but these were my favorite things. So, I was very eclectic. I was very eclectic, but I definitely, I mean, so it was that world and paired with anything that came out of France. So obviously I was a Dior and, had one eye on Dior, one eye on Givenchy. And, I always, always was looking in that direction.
That's
So,
funny. I love
kind
that.
of and literally all of this is really just those two worlds colliding somehow. And I get to still play. So it's good.
Right? Yeah, I just watched a documentary today that Soleil Moon Frye did called Kid 90.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that yet.
It's really good, and it's very nostalgic, especially because it starts in like 1989 is really when you go back and just seeing all of the clothing and the amount of plaid and the hip hop wear, because just the group that she hung out with, and then her own Punky Brewster stuff with the pigtails and all the color, it's just like it made me want to be more colorful, actually.
Yeah.
I have so much black, obviously.
We all do.
It's a hazard of our job, I think.
Do.
I have like half a closet that's just black.
Oh, so do I. When I travel, I'm definitely in layers of, because you got to keep it a little bit easy.
That's funny. I have a costume mentor of mine and another friend of mine that when they travel, everything is black, white, and gray. So it all just goes together.
That, and I know several designers, mainly scenic designers, and actually, and a few costume designers that literally pack multiples of basically the same outfit just to not have to think about it.
Just to go, and then she might throw on like a colorful
uniform.
scarf.
It's their like, because there's a large part of the thinking, and there are days where, the job isn't about, it isn't about me. It isn't about what I'm wearing, or my hair is like, at the end of the day, like on the top of my head, and like
I'm hot. I get hot. Everything. I need it not touching,
and it's awful. And then there are those moments that you're a part of it, and I want to wear my new cute thing, and and enjoy that. But sometimes you're so focused, and I'm guilty of it too, that you really just, it's not about what you may look like to others, because you're so focused on what you're putting out there for others to look at, that's at least that's what happens to me. But
I think that happens a lot with makeup artists, with hair people, with wig people, and especially like in film and stuff, and even in fashion, you're up so early.
The hours,
like, who has time?
Long. They're so long.
Right, the days are so long, and you're in the trailer at like 4 a.m. Like, yeah, let's look super cute for the one person that's gonna have their eyes closed while we apply a prosthetic.
Exactly. Oh, well, but however, there is always in the makeup trailer, there's always that genius person that is just all together, and they're flawless. And it's
there's always one.
2 a.m. And I'm like, really? You wore lashes? And like, I'm just like trying to keep it all together. Like at this point, I've got my sneakers on. I've turned around like probably an 18-hour day, and I'm there on set, and I'm cold, and like
Just the
and
layers
I
and
walk in, and then of course at that same moment, when I'm checking on, the talent, and I'm, chatting with the team and noticing how stunning this woman looks. At that moment, there's always the camera team that comes in. They're like, let's get a production shot.
behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I'm like, really? Right now?
Yeah. Ours
Then,
is when we're
so
doing
that's when
makeup. It's
I
the
crawl to the
horrible
back of the
profile.
frame. Yeah. Because here's the makeup team and their hair, and they're just flawless. And I feel like I was just, dragged behind a car, and yet I'm supposed to be in charge,
They're like, where's the boss? And you're like,
where, it's that poor, so that's what I always feel. It's always that timing. It's never like when I feel my best, and and I know my hair hasn't fallen out just yet,
or it's
never that.
clean. Like, you're like, can we do a heads up for the behind the scenes shot?
Right. And I've been on productions where it is amazing, and bigger tours, and it'll be on my schedule. And so I'll actually know of it. So I can, I can bring that fresh set of clothes, or maybe open my makeup bag, or even better, if I have a friend in Cosmo team, they'll be like, just sit down. And I'm like, bro, thank you. Just get rid of the dark circles. My son just called. I was crying. It's just,
Make me dewy and fabulous.
just help me. I just
Oh
sit
my
there
God.
and, so, you do sometimes have those sweet moments, but in
It's
general,
so true.
it always feels like they're not the majority. Or at least when I see the photos, and thankfully sometimes they're just in black and white, and that's where that needs to stay. But, generally I always relive the moment. I'm like, yep, okay, I guess it could have been worse. And then I'll realize what I'm wearing. I'm like, oh,
You're like, definitely had something cuter in the hotel,
definitely, but
it's fine. With your eclectic love of artists, whether they be musical designers or otherwise, if you were able to have a dinner party or a cocktail party, let's say, with like 3 people, who would it be? From
anybody?
any point in history, dead or
Okay.
alive.
Oh, jeez.
I know, and this is especially hard because I know that you like such a wide variety of people. You could pick their brain.
That's extremely hard. That's crazy hard. Because then I think I would want like an amazing artist that maybe I had questions about. So that would be interesting. Like, oh gosh, like that's hard. I mean, that's hard. I mean, that's hard.
Like, could you imagine having Judy Garland having a cocktail with her? Man.
Oh my gosh, she'd be a guest, but I just probably want to hug her. I felt sorry for her. Like,
yeah.
I know so much about her from working on Boy from Oz, as well as just idolizing her career, and loving A Star Is Born so much. Her version.
Her version, I just recently, while you think about this, I just recently rewatched it because I'd seen it when I was much younger, and
right,
you don't get it. You're like,
no.
Okay. But when I rewatched it, because the newest version is the 4th incarnation of it.
Yes.
And I was really surprised by the weight of her version, if that makes sense. I feel like there's so many films that come out during that time period that have a little bit of levity to them. They're not as heavy, and I feel like everyone in that film really went for it. Like, he is an alcoholic. It is abusive. She is trying. They're struggling. And it had a very modern feel to it. Like it could have been released.
all of those scenes of her not being enough, her being ugly,
Oh,
those were all touch tone points that happened to her. So like you watched her really just relive portions of her own public life,
yeah.
not sugar coated. And then on top of which, watching, her accomplishments then be hurt by the man she loved who also set her free, like just so many dynamics there. But anyway, so
Yeah.
that's a real, I don't, gosh, I don't, I would have to I'm not even a planner, but I think I'd have to categorize it. I would need somebody from history. Seriously, this is because how do you get through it? I mean, how do you just rattle off 3 names? Like, oh, like,
Like if they okay, well, let's say if there
I'm
was
failing this question.
if there was a artist, like traditional art, like classical artist, let's say painter,
Mm-hmm.
who would you like to visit with?
Well, I mean, obviously, add up my loves, French, Impressionistic, all that. So, Monet's name rises to the top. Vermeer rises to the top. Not an impressionist. Frida rises to the top. She's fascinating.
Frida would be fascinating.
Fascinatingly crazy, fascinating. Just and the strength.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, there's that, there's that avenue. And then is there someone before, would I want Edith Head there? Yeah, I might, that's kind of it. She worked in a man's world and,
dominated a man's world. Oh my God.
Smart. And, as I get older, I definitely value that. And then in the same respect, would I want like maybe, gosh, our world's so crazy. Would I want Abraham Lincoln or someone who just ripped open new ideas, like just on a community level,
You're right. I think categories is probably
I can't, I could say, I could then just do it someone very attractive to sit next to, or, the actress I never became, and who would that be Glenn Close, or would that be, Viola Davis? Oh my gosh, or
maybe you would have like a party.
I think I would need a small party. I think that, and then, those are just women. Hello.
Right? I think you would need like a legit cocktail party, like some kind of bohemian. We're in Paris in the 20s.
Yes, we need a theme. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, maybe we'll come up with a guest list.
Thank you. That might be just another show. We need to entertain the idea of like, okay.
That actually could be really fun and talk about people throughout history and why we love them.
Or combining the different randomness, like it could be.
But they all do go together, It's like they do somehow. See, we're already coming up on an hour. It's just totally
Sorry.
I know, right? It's so crazy. Would you have this is an especially trying time, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
For people that are aspiring to get into this industry, they're like, I'm going to be a designer. I'm going to be, work in theater. What kind of advice could you give the young designers out there for right now when things are not really moving yet? What do you?
Well,
what do you think?
My goodness. I think it's funny. I did have to think about this earnestly because with this past year, I did guest at a few theater graduations and panels with costume design graduates and theater majors to give them like a one-on-one experience with other peers in our industry. And I knew it would come up because, hello, the whole idea is to make connections as you're leaving college. And I was honest, not brutally honest, but I've never I was a young associate designer during 9/11 in the New York area. And that changed Broadway. That closed shows for a moment, a
Yeah.
big moment,
Yeah.
and changed productions, and things didn't come in, and joy was sucked out of the world. And I thought, wow, oh my gosh, what's going to be left on the other side? And now with this experience of what we just came out of 2020,
Yeah.
that was a walk in the park compared to what I've seen worldwide,
Yeah.
and how theater and arts and music have sadly become unessential in how we've looked about restarting things and protecting people. And that hurts my heart. So the best thing you could do is not discourage yourself. I want everybody coming out of college to keep that beautiful hope and spark and dream, and don't pressure yourself to have to run and find a production, because right now the productions that were healthy are trying to figure out how to come back after most all of the associates and assistants, they were all just let go, like everybody's just gone. And so obviously designers and the heads of departments will then look to try to get some of those people back, people that have families, people that have been in the industry and have tons of experience, just because in a way everything was leveled,
Yeah.
in a new way, in a bad way. So if there is anything you ever entertained, sort of a side hobby, because you never know, based on me, my side hobby kind of moved over into my main frame. If you can afford or find programs of learning, or a minor, or classes, or things you can immerse
Yeah.
yourself in and shelter and keep your brain in a good space, I would say do that. Do that for another 6 months to a year. And then pretend like, boom, you're out
Pretend
and
this
you're
part
ready.
didn't happen except for the
Yeah,
learning,
because
and then
I
jump.
don't know how I it is just such a different world, and it'll pass and it will heal. But if you're looking for that test tomorrow and that experience like by next week, things I put on my own self, expectations,
Yeah.
you definitely want to just pause. And if you can, um, find that other thing that makes you even more invaluable, so that when doors are open properly, and we have full houses, and we're planning for the future, we're getting out of the backlog, and we're planning for the next thing and the next experiences, without all of this covering of emotion, you'll be ready, and you'll be even that more valuable to a team or to a production.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right.
Right?
Just one more layer of things that you're able to
Yeah, and it
do.
can be
And
unrelated, because somehow it'll help you. Like it doesn't have to be. Oh, I mean, to me, my next thing would have been, I should have taken lighting. Like I would take classes in true lighting, not just I have a theater minor, but I would specialize more, because actually with technology, my last 10 years in Marvel, the systems and LED and the circuits I've learned and
yeah.
programmed for wearable clothing, before it was even as commonplace now. I mean, I was doing it 9-10 years ago, just doing it and not even thinking about it. So like, gosh, if someone had told me that, now I would do that, like find something. And at that point it would have been unrelated, but man, so useful. So
Right.
you
That
just never
day you
know.
would have been like, I absolutely know how to wire that thing up.
And
yes.
I know where the batteries should go and what kind of batteries and how we're going to do this and
what doesn't get
connection
hot
points. Yeah. And I'm going to program it myself. Yeah.
Doopy doopy doop. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I think that the career coming up even more ahead of you is going to be so wonderful, and it is going to open, and it's, I'm super excited to see what your designs and stuff are in the future, and and that you get to travel again. And
we do. I know. Well, I mean, I've been good or bad fortunate. I had 2 large jobs that were international when the world shut down, and out of luck or just having the right companies involved, we found a new way to continue on our production schedule, and the clothes are done. And I'm, one of the opening designers for our new Universal Park in Beijing, ironically enough.
ooh,
So even COVID didn't stop that. So,
the ingenuity is very impressive.
Well, I mean, you just, when thrown in the situation,
Yeah.
you just kind of did it. And it was an amazing experience. And I can't wait to share that soon. I think by May/June, we'll be, heralding to the world. But, it's been a challenge for all of us not being able to then go and check our work or be apart and be together and navigate this, just in a time of
absolute uncertainty.
Insanity. It's just insanity.
Fluidity isn't even, I think that's not even the right word anymore. It's fluid. I feel like it's so much more than fluid. It's, just uncertain insanity.
It's insanity. I mean, if someone had told me that this would happen, I'd be like, what? It's like being trapped in a bad movie.
Well, you and I talked about Groundhog Day, and both of us are like, I hate that movie.
And being trapped in that movie as well.
And I don't hate the movie, but it's not one that I ever watch ever again after I've seen it.
Not that when we've all around the world kind of definitely lived part of this movie together. I'm good. I mean,
totally fine. I'm good. Yep.
I'm so good.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I think that there's a lot of wonderful insight that you have to offer to professionals and aspiring professionals alike. I think we may have to have a cocktail party, pretend planning. I think that would be really fun and stimulating for our brains, right?
That's right. Again, we could challenge each other. All right, here's your 4 categories. We won't talk. I'll give you your 4 categories. You give me mine. Then we'll put the party.
Or maybe it's like a wedding and we have to plan where they're sitting, like who's sitting at the tables.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing.
Right? But they can't sit there because they had an affair with,
Yeah. Awkward.
Frida, you need to watch out.
No. This was a lot of fun and lovely to get to know you in the process as well.
Yeah, thank you. Right, get to know Cynthia and see what's going on in your brain and how it operates along with the professional stuff. So yes. I think that it's always a good time, and I just really appreciate you. And if you guys have any questions for her, feel free to email me and I'll pass them on, or you can just message her on Instagram or through her agency. So thank you so much. And it's late here, but it's just been a joy. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you for joining us today on Behind the Biz, Conversations with Artists in Entertainment. You can also check out this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. See you next time.